Now, some of you will get tired of the field you're in. Bedpans is easy to get tired of. There's not much glamour in bedpans. And for those of you, people die in bedpan business, and that's a whole other business I haven't even addressed. But, you got 40 beds, and any given month, 10% of the guys might die because they're old. That's a part of it I don't like. I'm a tough guy, but I don't like, I don't mind putting people in the grave, but I don't want to see people in the grave I didn't put. So for those of you that don't have the stomach for that, now you have other people that will deal with that. But I mean, in a 40-bed deal, on any given month, 10% of the people are going to die. And if you don't deal with that, it's a shitty part of the bedpan business. No, you care, you still throw them out.
Yeah.
But at least you have no downside.
Yeah. Do you tell them?
Now, you know what happens? The lawyer and the accountant on the board will then send you a bill for $18,000, $22,000 for the hourly hours they put in. Even though you told them they're not going to get paid, they'll send you an invoice because sometimes schmucks will just pay.
Do you tell them right off the hop, no communication?
Yeah, I don't want you communicating.
Okay.
Now, you can say it polite or you can say it hard. If you say it polite, they may say, well, we didn't understand what he meant. Now, I've been accused of a lot of stuff in my life, but never I didn't understand what Peña meant. Now, Sally, even since you guys have been here, one of you I told something and Sally said, well, Dan really meant to say, Sally has been massaging what I say for decades because she wants to put a softer tone on it. Because even though I don't give a fuck if you like me, Sally wants you to like me. Even after all these years, she says, isn't it better for people to like you, Dan, than not like you? I said, I made a lot of fucking money, nobody liking me. I'm afraid that if they like me now, I'm gonna lose all my money. Afraid's not really the word. Can I borrow this? Hey, huh? Okay, thank you. You had a question, somebody had a hand? Is this a trust deal again? See, forevermore, your trust. Your shekels and your trust. Go ahead.
What if the board member doesn't want to resign?
I'm glad you asked. When you fire them. Well, they don't have shares yet, remember? Then you'll probably get a bill.
And you shut up your ass.
Thank you. That's a Haitian comment, I'd say it was black deal, but we have other black people in the room, so I'm not gonna say it there. I'm just gonna say it's a Haitian deal. Guys, I know it sounds roughshod, and I know it sounds, to some of you, brutal, but my job is to keep you in the saddle as long as humanly possible and to get your deal done as quickly as humanly possible. Because once you've done a deal, they're all gonna love you. They're, not all, but almost all are gonna love you, and then they won't think about throwing you out. Doesn't mean it won't come up again. Normally when it comes up again is when there's a different opinion of which way the company should go. You've got $50 million in deals you've done, okay? Most of the board members want to sit on their assets and develop, organic growth, strategic horseshit, yada, yada. And you want to be a hard charger. You want it to be $1 billion company. But they're 65, 70, 73. You're 45, or 28, or 50, or whatever your age is, okay? Well, you want to beat this drum hard for another 10 years. They've already made some money, maybe millions, in some cases tens of millions, and the last thing they want is to be embarrassed in the twilight of their career. And so then there's there's a difference of opinion here, which way we should go. When any conversation comes up, even remotely like that, then you got to get rid of them. You got to get rid of them. Unless you don't want to grow the company, you want to just sit on your assets along with them. But when they say something like that, and this isn't a thing that you put up for debate. This isn't you're not looking for consensus.
Dictatorship.
Thank you. I mean, it's your way or the highway. Now remember, guys and gals, you put them in that room. You gave them the fucking stock. You gave them the fucking idea. Your energy brought all this shit together. Don't ever forget it. Act like it. Otherwise, I'm going to read about you in the financial obituary, not the obits you wrote. Yes, sir.
Have you ever experienced with
Probably yes, but go ahead.
you're doing the pre-check, they tell you they're going to vote.
Oh, and then they change?
Yeah.
Oh, yep. That's a good point. Okay, so now I've gone around and everybody says yes. And then you're having the board meeting. And then the CFO, who maybe you're closest to, and he comes and says, I think we're going to have a problem because, they were up late and they had a drink last night. That's a red flag. Okay? So then I adjourn the meeting. We're going to have a recess. There's no recess on the agenda, but we got a recess now, okay? And I go around and ask them individually, you had a change of heart, anything different? And so most of the time, if there's going to be an insurrection or a mutiny, it'll come out right then. I've asked board members to leave and abstain from voting. If you can't vote for this with your hand on your heart, then you can abstain. You got to go take a piss now, don't you? Oh yeah, I got to go take a piss. Okay. But if the vote changes in the board meeting, you bring the board. You have to have a second. So hopefully you've got one of the board members that's with you. I vote to adjourn the meeting, and he says I second it, and then the meeting's over. If all the board members are against you, then you got a problem. But you remember, you still have more than 50%, so they can vote whatever the fuck they want. You call for an EGM 10 days later. The only thing on the EGM agenda is a new board, and you toss them out. But that does happen. But that happens when, you know, they think they can bully you or push you around. Normally that happens to the young kids, that they can push you around. They shouldn't be able to push you around, but you know, this is new territory for almost all of the kids. But I mean, for for a 17, 18, 19-year-old, it's really new territory, you know. He wrongfully may look at some of these guys as their older brother, their dad, their grandfather, etc. But the majority of the time, if you follow the steps and you keep people in line until you get the first deals closed, then, I mean, I won't say it's gravy, but it's pretty much gravy, because they'll leave you to your own devices because they've gotten some money. And money, you know, I don't know if it's an awful thing to say, but it's the truth. Money is the differentiator. It just is. It just flat is. The only other time that you might have some disagreement on the board is you're going to sell out to a strategic as opposed to wait for an IPO, okay? Some of the guys would rather you sell out to a strategic, but you see, for whatever reason, that the future is an IPO, or vice versa. They may want you to do an IPO and you want to sell out to a strategic. And so there may be some discourse, intellectual discourse back and forth. But if you made the money all the way through the process, even though they may differ, there may be differences of opinion, a majority of the time they'll go with you. And when they see that you've gotten used to being in control, used to running the meetings as I've suggested you do, I mean, these guys that have been through regular meetings understand when the minutes come back and their comments aren't there. You know, they're not fucking, they may be retarded, but they're not buffoons. I mean, if you put comments on the agenda and you send it back to me, and then when we voted on the agenda, none of your comments were there, what do you think? Do you think it was a mistake that I missed them? Well, I guess he's not interested in my opinion. And then normally you don't get any more comments from them. They used to say, rightfully so, when I had 60% of a public company, I had 60% of the voting shares. You know, most of the directors just gave me their proxies, meaning I could vote their shares. That's fine. He didn't hurt my feelings that they gave me their, well, I did. They had 2%, 5%, and I had 60%. I mean, irrespective of what the other shareholders voted, I mean, when I voted 60%, it was fait accompli. I mean, and I did, run the company roughshod. When you're not accountable to anybody, I mean, I was accused of running the company roughshod. But we made a lot of fucking money. Jeezy, wheezy, Now, yes, I made most of the money because I had 60%, but the other shareholders all made a lot of money. They make as much money as I did, only because I had owned more shares. If they wanted to buy shares, fine. But it's a simple process. But you saw what happened to Simon. I mean, but those kind of deals that Simon worked on are fun. They are more fun than buying a $1.3 million Bedpan deal and then a $2.1 million Bedpan. There's no comparison. I mean, they're intellectually challenging. They're even scary. I mean, but you can get your ears chopped off too. Better you do those after you got a few million under your belt in your coffers. But those big deals are fun. There's no question about it. There's no question about it. And especially when there's a real good adversary on the other side. In the beginning, you don't want any good adversaries on the other side. You want mom and pop, because a well-trained adversarial team, could take you to lunch, or eat you for lunch. Excuse me, not take you to lunch. Eat you for lunch. So I'm setting this up so the fights and the skirmishes you have in the beginning are ones that I know you'll win. Now, for those of you that want to go fight Mike Tyson your second bout, I'm against that. God bless you. But I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen. And once in a while, you'll get board members that, they get to what I call Larry Holmes fever. I mean, it's just like a prize fighter. The first few fights, they're no-brainers. He's going to win. And then you get better and better and better. And then, you're a real journeyman boxer. And then you fight somebody for a championship. That's what the system's based on. So the odds of you losing on the bouts on the way up are pretty small. They're de minimis. But just like in a fight, I mean, a haymaker, like one of my favorite guys I used to like watching TV was Butterbean, that fat guy, Butterbean, and he had that haymaker. Yeah, you could see it from the satellite, but he'd hit the guy, boom! He goes down like, you don't want to be hit with those big haymakers from a guy like Butterbean. Hey, did I answer your question?
Yes, sir, thanks.
Yes, sir, in the back.
At what point would you consider like I've consolidated enough businesses, I'm ready to take it to a public level? At what point?
You mean you're ready to go up against Tyson?
Yeah.
No time soon. But let me answer. No, that's a legit question. You need, because another thing is when you get beyond your first 4, 5, 6 deals, the lawyers and the accountants are going to, even though your original deal was a delayed fee, rolling fees, now you have money. And even though you can ask, it's disingenuous for you to, when you got $2 million in the bank and the company does, for you to say that you want delayed fees, okay? And when you go up on a big deal like you're suggesting, it's going to cost money. Big deals, you heard that Simon went to $3 million pretty quickly, but it depends where you are in the market. It depends. Any big deal like that, I would do where there's a rule of law. The Middle East and Indonesia and those places, even though technically there's a rule of law, there's not a real rule of law. If you want to go up a big deal, fight in Canada, fight in the U.S., fight in Australia, fight in Britain, fight in Germany, fight. There the rule of law is going to protect you. They're not subject to bribery and things like that. Those other parts of the world, when you fight in those big deals, unfortunately, they are subject to bribery and corruption. So, but after you've got, $5 or $10 million in equity in your deal, you can go after one of those big ones, but you fight one of those big ones at a time. You're not trying to buy 3 little companies over here and fight a big one. You're devoting all your efforts to that one big deal because it'll take all your efforts collectively to win one of those big deals. Of course, once you've won one of the big deals, then again, the board they all think they're Genghis Khan, they all think that, the Attila the Hun, and then as Rick Scott did, 30 years ago, he did big deal after big deal after big deal. And that was another question.
You said that if someone's over 40, for example, they can do this like 3 times in their life. What is that process? You're saying taking something to
No. Okay, you're 40, and let's say you do it all perfectly 3 times, that's 3, 6, 9 years. So now you're almost 50. If you do everything wrong, it's 7 years, 7, 14, 21. So now you're 40, you're 61, okay? But just say you do the one in 3 years or less, then you do one, it's not an average, but when you're 40 in your early 40s, you can do this 3 times.
But I don't get what...
But it can be in different industries. It could be healthcare one time, it could be cybersecurity one time, it could be baby nurseries one time.
But within each time, it consists of multiple acquisitions of the same business.
Yeah, and the soonest I've seen anybody exit is probably 5 acquisitions and then an exit. The first acquisition was $1 million, the second acquisition was like $2.5 million, the third acquisition was like $4 million, so by the 5th acquisition and then the exit. Now some of you will get tired of the field you're in. Bedpans is easy to get tired of. There's not much glamour in bedpans. And for those of you, people die in bedpan business. And that's a whole other business I haven't even addressed. But you got 40 beds, and any given month, 10% of the guys might die because they're old. That's a shitty. That's a part of it I don't like. I'm a tough guy, but I don't like I don't mind putting people in the grave, but I don't want to see people in the grave I didn't put. So for those of you that don't have the stomach for that, now you have other people that will deal with that. But in a 40-bed deal, on any given month, 10% of the people are going to die, and if you don't deal with that, it's a shitty part of the bedpan business. Now, in the upper country club, less people die. The sicker people go to the lowest end of the assisted living. It should be the opposite. But the most sick go where the less services, the less perks, because they can't afford it. Because guys like you don't want to spend the money to put your old man or your mom in a quality place. Not because you don't love them, because probably you don't have the money. Not everybody can afford 40, 50 grand a month. In fact, very few people can afford 40, 50 grand a month to put their mom or their dad. But in the lower end of the business, there's people passing away, and and for those, and I don't like that part of it. That's not why, but I know that's where the margins are, and I know that's where you can make the most acquisitions. So you just have to deal with that somehow. Most people start in the lower quadrant of assisted living and want to get out, so they leverage up and they acquire higher end assisted living. But there's no shortage. There just isn't. There was another. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if you've done the research, but is the hospital...
I probably haven't done the research, but go ahead.
Is the hospital industry in the U.S. already consolidated pretty much?
Oh, it's been consolidated, unconsolidated, but there's still consolidation to be had. There still is. There's still small to medium-sized hospitals. Yeah, there is. But again, as I mentioned earlier today, they're not in bankruptcy. Don't try to use that as your conduit for acquisition candidates. And in America, then they've got Medicaid and Medicare, and they've got Obamacare and all these other things. And you have to ascertain where a majority of your billing is coming from. Now, I like private, where they pay cash, but most old people don't pay cash because they don't have the cash. So there is some sort of insurance. Okay, YouTube, thank you.